I am Greg Wells. I am a record producer, really a musician, and a songwriter, and a mixer, and just general noisemaker. I have worked with all kinds of different artists, from Rufus Wainwright to Katy Perry, Pink. I have produced the first One Republic record. I've done all the Mika records. I've worked with the Deftones, rappers like Theophilus London and Kid Cudi, and I really don't take any of this for granted. Like it's you know, I don't come from money. I don't come from the music business. I really am a minister's son from a small town in Canada, and I still really feel like that. However, you know, Adele was here, like whatever that was, a year ago, a year and a half ago, and we wrote 2 songs in that room. One of them went on her record, and that record just sold 25 million copies. It just went diamond in the States, which is a term you don't hear too often. It's over 10 million. It's still selling enormously. Working with her was so incredible. She really was 21, as you know, that's the title of her album. She was a 21-year-old, super smart, wise beyond her years person who is funny as hell and very quick. So I was looping this chord progression on the piano, and she said, "Can you just keep playing it?" She was walking around with her notepad very quietly in the piano room beside me. I could hear her kind of muttering, and I kept playing, and then she just said, "Okay, I have something. I don't know if it's any good. It might be crap. Can I just sing it for you?" I said, "Sure." She said, "Okay, just play those chords again," and I did. And the song's called One and Only, and if you listen to her album, the way she sings the chorus, it opens on a high C, full voice. "I dare you to let me be your one and only," which is one of the best lyrics I've ever heard. And she ripped into it, and it sounded exactly like the final record. She just sang the whole chorus from top to bottom, and I almost fell off the piano stool, because it's a huge voice. In so many ways, she sort of is like the new Aretha Franklin. Really, truly, authentically is that good. And then she was done, and she was like, "What do you think?" And she meant it, you know. She was like, she didn't know at the time if it was good or not, and I could barely contain I started laughing. I said, I think we're onto something. This is really good," but I was dying inside. I'd like to tell you a very revealing and ultimately really helpful story about one of my favorite Waves plugins, which I've talked a lot about, the linear multiband compressor. When I really first started using it was on Mika's first album, which is called Life in Cartoon Motion. It's wound up selling 6 million copies worldwide. It was a huge, I didn't know it was going to be a big record. And I've gotten, you know, compliments from everyone from Mutt Lange to like Kevin Killen and, you know, engineers and producers. I really have loved and admired and respected their work for years. And I spent a month mixing that record. I really wanted it to be as great as I could get it. And I will never forget, I had the mix kind of built, and it was Mika's song Grace Kelly, which wound up being his biggest song ever. And the mix sounded really good, it felt great. And then in the 11th and a half hour, I put the linear multiband plug-in across the entire mix. And I'm telling you, like within 3 seconds, Mika jumped up from that chair, and he freaked out. And it hadn't really changed that much, but it was just a subtle balancing of, it's what that plugin does, which I'll explain in greater detail. But he jumped up and he said, "Now it sounds like a record." What the linear multiband compressor does is it's separate compressors in one plugin. The left hand, it's like just the super low frequency range, and that's it. So whatever you do to the compressor settings, if you do nothing, it doesn't do anything to the low end. Whatever you do, it will only affect that window of frequencies. And so it's kind of like super low, mids, you know, upper high end, and then like the real, like, there's a Waves preset called Multi-Electro Mastering that is what I almost always start with as a place to begin. And if I play with the master threshold amount, I'll take that setting, but then I'll turn the threshold all the way to 0, so it's not doing anything, and then slowly kind of pull it down until I see and hear things are getting compressed a little bit, and then I'll pull the threshold down even more to where it's doing too much, and it's too much of a good thing, and then I'll rein it back into where it just feels right. And it's usually not doing very much, but it just does the subtle kind of balancing of like, it makes it fluid and just makes it sound better. It makes me sound like a better mixer. I like to hear things sounding pretty mixy from a very early stage. I always want it to sound presented like a record, whatever that means to people. You know, to have really like world-class sounding stuff that I can just call up, and within 20 seconds of opening, it's like we're there, and and I could play it for anyone. We are really at the point now where the plugins, I think, sound as good as the hardware. I think there's a slight difference, but not enough where I couldn't completely rely on it with, you know, under the most pressure with the world's biggest artists. Right now, I'm making 2 records at once. And they're very different records that would have very different settings. So to be able to have the luxury of like, boom, being able to call up a session and then all my settings come back, not just levels, but EQ, compression, all of it, you know. When I really started paying attention to compressors being as viable as, you know, my hardware was when the CLA, LA2A, LA3A, and 1176 came out, and I couldn't believe how good they sounded. We use that on a lot of stuff. I mean, certainly on vocals. It's wicked on drums. I can't think of anything it wouldn't be wicked on. I mean, maybe like for the most subtle kind of slow, gooey compression, it's probably not right for that. However, his LA2A is really right for that. And I like stuff that kind of leaves a big footprint sonically on stuff, and so that plugin really does it. I have used an immense amount of the SSL plugins. I mean, when that was another moment of like, thank God that came out. It's so musical, and it's so immediate, and it sounds great too. I love the Kramer Master Tape plugin. I use that a lot on, sometimes I'll put it across the entire mix. Use it on drums a lot. We'll often put it on a vocal. I really love the JJP stuff, and I really love the Chris Lord-Alge stuff as well. And I gotta say, his vocal plugin is stupendous. It is, and the effects one is just unbelievable. Like nothing sounds bad on it at all. It all sounds good. It all sounds better than what you had going before. And I've tried to beat, especially in the vocals, I've tried to beat it with other individual pieces, and it never has the same kind of mojo. And the drum one is crazy as well. It's just crazy, especially for rock drums. H delay is my favorite delay, hands down. It is wild. With the rarest of exceptions, it's all I use now. And I rely more heavily on delays than I do reverbs. I'm using a lot of delay, especially on vocals. And there's just something so musical about the H delay. What it does in a track, it vibes it up. It just sounds the way that I want delay to sound, even on all the different settings, whether it's slap or kind of a big ping pong thing with a little bit of modulation on it. I love the lo-fi button. I love just being able to hit that and you get that other coloration. That's usually how I use it, actually. I can't think of another company that has invented such a wide range of plugins where the quality is so high and there's no learning curve at all, and it's plug and play, literally, and makes me sound more like I know what I'm doing, which we all need help with.